So, I'm very much a fan of the show The Last Kingdom on Netflix, I'm pretty sure. It's it's kind of like Vikings, I guess, only it's good. Shots fired, I know, but I've never really found the chance to read the original novel, written by the incredible author Bernard Cornwell. He was a living legend in many respects. Until now, I haven't had the chance to read it. Um, so I received it as a gift for Christmas a year or two ago, and I finally found the time to crack it open. And I read the first book in the long, long series of Saxon adventure stories. Um, the Last Kingdom is, in my opinion, very much superior to the other Bernard Cornwell book that I read, the Winter King. The sort of King Arthur story. And I found that to be a little bit too grimdark and chaotic for my taste. He took a few too many liberties with the old school mythos of King Arthur. Though I thought the style and the imagery in that book was phenomenal. And The Last Kingdom has style too. Don't get me wrong. Um, just not quite as much style as The Winter King with its dwarves and witches and black Numidian warlords and the most beautifully devious character assassination of Sir Lancelot that I've ever seen, and I am totally there for it. I mean, it's something spectacular just how evil Sir Lancelot is portrayed in that book. But I digress. The Last Kingdom follows a much more interesting character. It follows Uhtred of Bebbanburg, a fictional character who is based on an actual historical line of sort of petty kings who ruled Bebbanburg, Bamberg, in the real world. Only they took over like I don't know, a decade or so after the events of this particular book. But Cornwell acknowledges that, and he says that you'll basically that's the suspension of disbelief that Uhtred ruled is the rightful heir to Bebbanburg. That's the sort of conceit of this particular book. So yeah, Uhtred is a nobleman of England whose father, also called Uhtred, is killed in battle with the Danes, who are invading from the north across the sea. And Uhtred is captured by the Danes, and he is enslaved. At least that's the original intent. Though he is basically like adopted by an Earl Ragnar the Fearless, not to be confused with Ragnar Lothbrok or any of the other 100 different Ragnars in like sort of Scandinavian history. Um, but Ragnar the Fearless, he admires Uhtred for his like strength and bravery and courage, and he is raised as a Dane. Um, he's an Englishman raised by a Dane who falls in love with, well, to be honest, numerous English women, and I imagine that he's going to fall in love with some Danes too as the story goes on. Um, and it's going to be all. It's he's a great source for internal conflict. Is our Uhtred, especially when tragedy strikes again and again. He is driven from one home to another and forced to survive by his wits and by quite a lot of cunning and by making alliances. It's very, very fascinating, I think. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure about the quality of Uhtred's character, because the story is narrated by an old, famous, tired Uhtred, right? We don't know where he is exactly, but he's telling a story. And he strikes me as a bit of an unreliable narrator. Uhtred is this dangerous warrior, and he sort of implies that he gets up to some really freaky, dangerous, possibly evil stuff. It's unclear. He's he's a warlord, right? And he's very intelligent, but he's very selfish and very prideful. He has the potential for great compassion in him, and he has absolutely no faith in something like the Christian Church or in the laws of men. Really, he cares only for his own laws. He's very chaotic in that regard. Might makes right, and yet he's uh, he's very loving, very passionate. He will kill you if you mess with his family. Like seriously. He robs some people and he sleeps with a lot of women and he fights in a lot of battles. Sometimes he's the aggressor in the battles and sometimes he's the defender. It's not that it's not that he gets up to any of the stuff that I assume to be really bad. I don't think he's not like he's no the Mountain from Game of Thrones, to my knowledge. But he doesn't really bother himself with the people who are like that either. If they don't get in his way, he won't really get in theirs, which is really morally ambiguous. And it does make him a slightly worse person than the guy depicted in the show, who I love and is one of my favorite characters. I prefer the guy in the Netflix show, honestly. But this guy is really interesting too, and if I believed he was supposed to be wholly sympathetic, I would consider it. I'd consider it a bad story, honestly. But I don't believe he's meant to be wholly sympathetic. The things that happen to him are bad, and I believe that we are meant to sympathize with those things. But I do not believe that Uhtred is meant to be entirely a good guy or a traditional hero. He's no Ned Stark. Um, but yeah, it's kind of a bit of that I dare say a Robert E. Howard style of writing, where like it's like religion and society versus a more primeval family and violence and the gritty side of things. It's how the wolf versus the wolf among sheep, right? It's the wolf is better in some respects because at least it's honest as opposed to the wolf in sheep's clothing, right? The wolf who lies to the sheep and who convinces them that it's their friend before killing them. And so Uhtred sort of symbolizes the just standard traditional wolf, whereas a lot of the churchmen and nobles he encounters are that wolf in sheep's clothing, that very dangerous, evil source of evil in the world. At least that's how the story presents it. And it's all very interesting because Bernard Cornwell is, I mean, he's a stuffy British author, with all due respect to the man. I very much like stuffy British authors, and he's very much entrenched in civilization and in culture and in law. Uhtred doesn't like writing or reading, for that matter. He thinks it's stupid, and so it's very meta and almost satirical the way Uhtred is presented in such uh, black and white, like learning is bad sort of terms. It's quite fun, I think, and I think Bernard Cornwell definitely knows what he's doing there. Um, and all the while, Uhtred, I do not think, is even the main character, because we have at the center of it all Alfred the Great, uh, this incredibly complex historical figure who the first book is really barely able to explore in any depth, despite the fact that, though the story is told by Uhtred and is nominally about Uhtred, I think the main character is Alfred the Great, this famous king who does battle with the Danes and proves himself a very fascinating historical figure. Cornwell admits in the sort of author's note at the back of the book that he wanted to follow Alfred the Great's journey through British history, and he's using Uhtred as a vehicle for that, as someone who can be around and observe Alfred's great deeds. And my God, does Cornwell come with bloody receipts for everything that happens? He justifies every little historical event that occurs, and he justifies every change, and that I can respect, as long as he's making it clear that when he's changing things and what little tidbits of information are lost to history and he's having to take liberties with. I find that very fascinating and very respectable that he's coming at it from a scholar's point of view. He is a scholar, I think, first and foremost, and he's very smart. Um, it is not a Song of Ice and Fire. I prefer something like a Song of Ice and Fire, or even Mary Stuart's Arthur books. I don't think Cornwell is maybe the best at writing about engaging humans, if that makes any sense. I don't think uh, he's I don't think he's a master at the human heart in conflict with itself. He's no Stephen King in that regard. But what he is really good at is writing battles and conflicts. He's really great at drawing you into a war and the maneuvers and the fighting, and he's able to draw you into a very interesting adventure in a lot of ways. Um, and I find that inspiring, really. Um, am I going to continue the series? Maybe, probably. But I think I need a break for now. I might try something a little bit more lighthearted. I'm not sure if I'm going to succeed in finding something like that, but you never know. So, yeah, bye.